Welcome to Manga Alert, everybody. This week's sponsor is none other than Kamehacon.
All right.
Hang on. I'm getting something. Oh, this just in. We have officially opted out of Kamehacon in favor of the Vic issue. Start the Twitter hashtag down with the Vic. We do not support sexual harassment on the Manga Alert podcast. Thank you very much. All right, in all seriousness, welcome everybody today to the Manga Alert podcast. I am your host, Old Shaman. Joining me again today is the host with the most votes, Gear Third Manga Reviews.
Hey.
Also joining me as our guest today, Apollo Gray.
Well, hello.
Yeah, Gay.
I don't know why people want him on episodes.
I don't think people do.
We already get enough.
He's just the most available.
That is true.
Yeah, but we also have to think about, like, Gear's favorite person, like, person that roasts me every single video. We have to give him some content.
That's true.
By the way, he decided to betray the podcast and the Brotherhood this week by releasing his own shitty podcast that I don't recommend that you all watch because it was shit.
Hey, fuck you. It was not shit, it was
that
great.
being said, theme song.
We're always in our clubhouse getting high. Super fuckers. Everybody wishes we would die. Super fuckers. Here we come like a bomb. Everybody fucking run and hide.
And welcome back, everybody. Glad to have you all back on here for another episode of Manga Alert. We're going to jump right in. Bleach.
But again, Shrug,
Don't forget
Shrugpon, our other host, he's still being held captive by Vic Mignogna's lawyers. So, again, he won't be on the podcast.
He will not be on for this episode just because he's under his constitutional right to not appear in a public domain.
Our plan was to go to Kamehacon to get him back. We had Taz. Taz is staffing it. He was going to help us, but obviously we're not going anymore. So
yeah, we had a panel and everything. I was super excited about it, and I was hoping that we'd get at least 5 or 6 fans coming out, but that our dreams were crushed in a heartbeat.
Yeah. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you guys even planned on doing signings, didn't you?
Oh yeah, it was gonna be an all-out panel. We were gonna have Q&A. We were gonna play board games, Cards Against Humanity. Maybe have some cringy fans come up to us asking for autographs and giving us baked goods with their hair cooked in
asking to hug them.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, inappropriate hugs, which are now banned at cons because they are now labeled as sexual harassment. So we can't have that anymore. All right, Bleach. This is the big one, fellas. This is a series that I have been dying to talk about since season 1 of Manga Alert. And it's funny because we spent the whole first season talking and covering basically all of the generic shonens as well as the big 3. Mm-hmm. We just so happened to leave Bleach out for 2 seasons, and now just talking about it.
I mean, quite fitting leaving Bleach out of the things, but yeah.
Yeah, I think rightfully so. I'm going to go out on a limb and just say, all right, let's just talk about how we got into it. I'll go first. So Bleach, for me, was one of the few shonen series I was getting into when I was first starting collecting manga. Naturally, I got really into it because Soul Society was just a blast to read through. I mean, from all the characters that were being introduced, the different powers and abilities like the Hados and the Zanpakutos and the different abilities that they had with them, it was all interesting and fascinating. The character development, while it didn't really necessarily shine as much, I felt with the amount of characters introduced as well as some of the development throughout Soul Society was pretty good. And the artwork was fantastic for me. I thought the artwork was definitely something I got on board with, and Kubo definitely improved his style over time. But I got into Bleach when I was first starting collecting manga. It was that whole shonen hype. So around 2009, 2010, around that time. And for me, it was just a downward spiral because each arc continued to get worse and worse over time, and my hatred for the series, while wasn't necessarily high as it is now, I still really liked Bleach, even with its flaws towards the end of its lifespan. But looking back at it now, I can definitely see that there were more problems than good. So we'll get into that a little later. Anyways, Gear Apollo, you guys are up next. How'd you get into it?
All right. I got into it whenever Shueisha was releasing the Shonen Jump magazines in most retailers back in like 2005, 2004.
Back in the day.
Yeah, back in the good old days when manga wasn't very known. So the manga that stood out to me back then were Bleach and Naruto. And Bleach was the first manga that I really read, and one of the first 4 that I collected. And I have to admit, I did love Bleach, and I continue to love it up until about probably about 2011, 2009 to 2011, somewhere in there, when it was getting closer to the end of the Arrancar arc and everything was happening. And I noticed it just started to kind of downward spiral, like he was saying. And as the arcs kept going, I lost kind of my faith into it, and I just kind of switched over to Naruto and kind of dropped Bleach until it ended, and I read it all. So I don't hate Bleach, but I don't love it either. I'm a big fan of Bleach, but I wouldn't consider it fantastic by any stretch of the word.
So, for me, when I was first getting into manga, and I was looking at all these big series I could potentially start, Bleach was probably the most appealing to me, just based on the concept. You know, I looked at, like, One Piece and Naruto and all this, but, like, the whole thing with the Soul Reapers and all the sword fighting and stuff all seemed really cool, so that was the first, I believe, of the big 3 that I got into. And I started Bleach by watching the anime. And I watched, I don't think I finished Soul Society because I wanted to read the manga instead. So I think right around the time I started my channel, I got the first Bleach box set and eventually the second, and I read from the start all the way to the end of the Arrancar arc, and while I definitely thought Soul Society was much better, I really enjoyed what I read of Bleach, and I considered myself a pretty big fan. And then I didn't read Bleach for like 3 or 4 years because in that time Bleach was like wrapping up kind of, and I was just hearing nothing but bad things about it. So I really didn't want, I was really hesitant to get into the rest of Bleach, and I'm sure most of you who watch my videos know that it took me a very long time to finally get around to reading it again. But last year, I started from the very beginning. I read Soul Society again, and I read through Arrancar, which wasn't as good as I remembered, and then I read the last 2 arcs, and yeah, that'll do it.
Yeah, sometimes ignorance is bliss, knowing that Soul Society is literally the best arc in Bleach.
Yeah.
I'm just saying. But
yeah, anyway, so yeah, then I reviewed it, and the rest is history. Yay.
yeah, that's fair to say. All right, let's talk about these arcs. I know a lot of people are probably not expecting, or they are expecting us to just praise the hell out of Soul Society, and rightfully so. The pacing for Soul Society, I feel, is perfect. It's a little slow in the beginning, but by volume 5 or 6 is kind of when everything starts to hit the fan a little bit, in a good way.
I actually really like the first few volumes of Bleach when it's just like introducing Ichigo's friends. And
it's like a monster of the week kind of scenario, a little bit.
Yeah, I thought that was really cool, and it worked pretty well at just like introducing everyone. It was a fun
I agree.
time, yeah. But
I
then,
will say though, because to not bring up the whole slow factor, if you're not into it, I can understand people not liking those first few volumes.
Yeah, fair
just
enough.
because that sort of has that cliche of that monster of the week kind of thing. A lot of people aren't really into that, so that's why I'm just like, I liked it, but I can understand why other people would not like
right,
it.
yeah.
Now,
And
when they get to Soul Society, that's when things start to get a little bit better. That's like the peak pinnacle point of Bleach for me. So, Paulo, you were going to say something, so I cut you off.
I don't know if y'all remember this. This was back in the good old days of like 5th and 6th grade, but there was a really bad Bleach versus Naruto war, and a lot of people dropped Bleach by like the 4th volume because of the slowness.
Like
I don't know if y'all remember that or not.
Like Taz.
I'm serious.
It's not even
Like
slow.
people said it was people said it was garbage, and they switched over to Naruto. And then from there, like back when MySpace was still around, amazingly, there was like a Bleach versus Naruto thing, and if you weren't with one side, you were against them, and it was rough.
So it's basically like the current My Hero versus Black Clover thing.
It was worse. It was so much worse. Like, people back then were out for blood.
People running in fucking PE like Naruto, fucking carrying swords on trains, trying to be Soul Reapers.
And kids would wear like headbands out in public and fucking run as fast as they could, arms out behind them, thinking they were just gonna, I don't know what the hell they thought they were
Dark
gonna do,
Ages.
Oh my god.
But, fuck yeah.
Hearing the tales from Old Man Apollo about the Dark Ages. Kids these days don't understand.
Kids will never understand what true shonen hype
I bet half people watching this don't even know what MySpace is. By the way, MySpace is actually still around, if you didn't know.
Well, it wasn't
apparently.
always around. I think they just brought it back just to try things out to see what it would be like, but it's it's terrible.
They brought it back as a music only kind of thing, and it's roof. It's
Rest
rough.
in peace, MySpace.
Yeah. Anyway, back to Bleach.
Yeah, so
the point
our
where-
favorite.
The point where things really get crazy, it's like obviously when Renji and Byakuya come to get Rukia, because at that point, because like the whole
Renji
time
and
you
Rukia
didn't really
come, huh?
know.
Ooh,
Oh, yeah.
they come all right.
Spoilers, but they don't you don't really know much about the Soul Reapers or where Rukia is from at all. You're just kind of just going along with it, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh shit, she broke the law, she's gonna be executed. And then the true story.
Yeah,
begins.
you know what?
And,
It
from
kind
there
of just
it's-
throws you into the action, but you know what? It's the simple stuff, and again, this is going to be heavy spoilers for this podcast. So, when you finally start to realize the true motives of like the main villain of Bleach, which, and you know, it's Aizen. It's fuck the 1,000-year blood worm. Fuck Wolverine arc. Those two arcs can go die in a dumpster fire.
I thought it was Ichigo's sword was the true villain.
I mean, you're not wrong. I mean, I guess, but you know, the problem with Bleach, and this is going on a tangent here, is that there is so much in the realm of bullshit storytelling that is pulled out of the ass of Taita Kubo that it just stinks. It's like for the longest time, like there was. In the Arankar arc, I remember there was the span of when the father was like, I'll tell you the truth about you. And then Ichigo's like, I don't want to know. And then, like, 30 volumes later, he's like, I want to know. And then they finally tell the story of, like, Ichigo's backstory. And, like, they tell him how he's part human, he's part Soul Reaper, he's part Quincy. And he was also a Fullbring for, like, 2 seconds. And believe it or not, his Zanpakuto is not really his Zanpakuto. It is Yhwach, but in his younger form, as he's trying to regain his power and abilities by manipulating Ichigo throughout his journey as a Soul Reaper. And now he is not a true Soul Reaper, but he is now officially a Soul Reaper because the elite Squad Zero Division created his Zanpakuto out of the fires of how all Zanpakutos are created. Now he is truly a Soul Reaper. So bad in terms of just, and I know I'm leaving out a lot of details. God. Well, kind of.
No,
not
you did
really.
it perfectly. Actually, that was the exact.
But
it's not explained much better than that.
I can't believe it. Like Kubo was able to have the first 21 volumes of Soul Society, which I guess it's kind of 1 through 20, a little bit of 21, but he's able to, like, not necessarily ass pull anything, but start to, like, get a good development for his characters as well as this universe and the world that he's trying to build.
Like, I love so many things about Soul Society. Like, on paper, it sounds like, you know, normal shonen stuff. They're going around fighting guys, but, like... Like, I love how it doesn't really fall back on those cliches. Like, the characters go in and they're completely underpowered to fight all these Soul Reapers, and they lose most of their fights, like, pretty badly. But the thing about the Soul Reapers is that they're not really they're not villains. They're just following orders or whatever. And of course, we learned that the orders are from a villain.
Yeah.
So, and I just love how like some of the Soul Reapers like they break off and start to help them, and all this crazy shit. Yoruichi training him, like, and it all comes together, just really fantastic. And then at the end, they save Rukia, but they don't really win because Aizen's like, haha, all according to Kaikaku, and then he runs away.
And I will say,
So,
Aizen is probably one of the best villains in Bleach.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he's one of my favorites. Like he's got motive. His twist is sort of a shock, which I
Oh
enjoy.
my God. That's honestly one of my favorite like scenes in all of manga when he's revealed to be
He's like,
alive,
"Ah
and he just
I
stabs
was the
what's her
real villain
face."
all
It's like-
along."
I was like, whenever they showed the panel of him on the wall, that was honestly, my jaw dropped when I saw that.
Oh my God. And what I love about Bleach, and I don't know if this was intentional or not, but like when I was reading through Bleach, I knew what the villain looked like because he's eyes and he's so iconic. But because he looks different at the start of the series, I didn't see the
Yeah.
the twist coming at all. Right? I thought this dude.
Well,
I'm like, oh, he got
turns
killed.
into a
Rip. I didn't
he
know
turns
that he
into
was
a
the
total
actual
greaser
villain.
when he like takes off his glasses. He's like, whoop,
Yeah.
whoop,
Yeah.
let me slick my
Just
my hair
pushes
back
his hair
and take
back.
my glasses off. Instant villain right there. Great.
Fucking Superman, but the villain
All
version.
right.
Oh, man.
I think it's appropriate we give tallies for Soul Society and just for all the arcs that we're going to be covering here. I'm going to go first. So Soul Society for me, I think it's the perfect introduction arc. I consider it to be top 10 shonen arcs of all time. Just the amount of characters as well as the battles, the Renji, the Kenpachi, and the Byakuya fight, all amazing in their own right.
Oh,
Even
so
the intro
good.
fight with Ikaku
So
I
good.
thought was great because, like, Ichigo
Oh,
doesn't necessarily win by a landslide, but he struggles to even fight like a third seat ranked swordsman in Soul Society.
Yeah.
And barely wins. So the underdog story's
Yeah.
there, the shonen hype's there, the build-up's there, the iconic villain, the iconic protagonist is there.
And of course,
So-
we get to see Yoruichi, and
And we get Yoruichi ass, that's correct.
which on that note,
Yeah,
I
that-
asked people to leave us some Bleach questions for this podcast. We didn't get any except for one, where what's it? Blackor 19 asks, "Best tits? I mean girl."
Best girl in Bleach?
Yeah, and I think we already mentioned her, so
I would say Yoruichi
Oh, yeah.
by far, you know.
sure.
I mean,
Oh,
unless
yeah.
you want to go with
Oh,
the
yeah,
underdog
100%.
or Hime with her wonderful abilities and
no.
great
No.
character
Have you
development.
seen Volume 17? That
No.
cover?
Big tits
Oh.
McGee. Oh my god. Orihime has got to be one of the worst Sakura. Actually, you know what? If I were to say who would be more useful on the battlefield, Sakura or Orihime,
Yeah.
Sakura. At least she can hear you. Hear you.
and isn't screaming Ichigo. Although she is screaming Sasuke 24/7, so I mean, they both
Yeah.
suck. They both suck.
And at one
There's no
point-
winner.
Yeah. I don't know. Like, Sakura can punch the ground at
I
least.
guess,
That's one
but
thing.
that proves to be like ineffective because she never kills anybody except Sasori because he's the worst Akatsuki member.
But he was like a robot.
Not
though.
really. He just turned his whole body into like a puppet, basically.
But yeah, a robot.
No,
He-
there are no
the only
robots
thing
in
he had was a
Boruto
heart.
or Naruto.
Fucking.
In
actually,
Boruto there is, but not in Naruto.
I thought there was filler robots.
Robot,
No,
puppet,
filler
same
is
thing.
not count.
It's just one is mechanical.
Anyways,
one is not.
Yeah.
big tangent here.
So, so Ichigo
I'm giving my
gets-
my Soul Society score 9.5 out of 10. I enjoyed it.
Ooh.
I still reread it, and I'll still consider it a good piece of my collection because I will always go back to Soul Society, reread that, enjoy, set it down, don't ever go back.
Yeah.
9.5 out of 10.
Yeah, I'd give it a 9. It's very good. Like, I was expecting to not like it as much, like 3 years later, but I still really enjoyed it. And honestly, I'll probably go back and reread it at some point. In fact, I'm trying to sell my second Bleach box set, but I never plan on giving away the first one because it's so good. Anyway, speaking of the second... Oh, wait, no, Paul, you give your score. Yeah.
I'd have to say probably an 8.5 out of 10. I
Wow,
do
hater.
consider. I do consider Soul Society to be amazing, but I don't know if I would consider it top 10 shonen arcs anymore. Maybe top 20, just because I read probably 50% of everything I read, maybe even 60% is shonen. So I've read a lot of really good shonen.
Fair enough.
Yeah, like Fire Punch, you know. It's
That's
great.
not a shonen.
In our hearts, it is. Believe it. Anyways,
So Ichigo says goodbye to his Soul Reaper friends. He goes home, and then they're back immediately. They're like, "Hey,
Yep.
Ichigo,
Hey,
we hope you had a fun time waiting, but we're back 2 chapters later.
yep.
Also, your dad's a Soul Reaper."
Oh yeah.
also, can we talk about real quick just the fact that his dad has like a 100 by 150-foot fucking poster of his mom's face on the wall? Can we talk about that real quick?
Oh yeah, and let's talk about all the plot holes in Bleach and how he could have like actually
God.
saved her, but like didn't because he's
Yeah.
a fucking retard.
Oh, and there
Yeah.
was one thing like this, like in the first few chapters of Bleach, they were like setting up Ichigo's sister to be important, because like she could also see the hollows and stuff.
Yeah.
But she like never ended up doing anything.
I mean, yeah. I also kind of wonder what happened to Cone, because we never really found out what happened to Cone.
He
Well-
became Super Cone and he got buff,
Yeah.
and then he defeated Yawatch and became the Soul Reaper God. Oh god.
Cone
Now
was
that I'm
great.
thinking, I really don't want to go to Blood War, but we gotta still make it through a few more arcs. All right, Arankar arc. So this one, like
Ugh.
Gear said, throws no punches, no hesitation. It just jumps you right into the action again. We now have the introduction of the Espadas, which, if you've noticed, what Kubo does over the course of the Bleach stories is that he kind of themes his arcs around various cultures. Soul Society being, of course, Japanese culture. He themes the Espadas around Latino
Mexico.
culture.
Yeah.
And the Fullbring, I believe, he never really
Merca.
said what full. I guess
Merca.
what Americans? Yeah, okay.
Probably.
And then finally with the Quincy's Germans. So,
Yeah.
anyways, the Arankar
Fucking
arc.
Nazis.
So we get a few introductions to
We get like those
the-
half hollow people who
yeah,
help
the
Ichigo.
Espadas
Like,
and whatnot.
We'll show you
And,
your true hollow form, Ichigo.
Oh yeah. So Ichigo gains an ability in this particular arc. He now has the power to. It's so stupid. I mean, in Soul Society, he ends up like there's a particular arc where he's training with his Soul Reaper apparition or whatever, or his Zanpakuto, so to speak. And he has something living inside of him called White Ichigo, which is his hollow state. We get an understanding about it a little bit later, sort of, how Ichigo was attacked by a hollow when he was younger, and that's how he ends up having hollow blood inside of him or whatever, and that's why he can manipulate the hollow inside of him to become a hollow Soul Reaper. Yeah. It's used maybe in 2 fights, and then it's never brought up ever again. One of the key fights would be Grimjow, and then he uses it a bit in the Ukiura fight, where he actually does turn into a hollow. And then Orihime screams and goes, "Not my Ichigo!" And then Ichigo kills Ukiura, and then they all
No, he
go
doesn't
happy,
fucking kill.
happy
He
go
nukes
Dory or whatever.
Ukiura.
Right. So the big middle chunk of this arc is Orihime gets kidnapped, so they have to go into another world to save her, which is kind of the exact same thing that happened before, except it's
Yep.
worse.
Yeah, so the problem with this arc in particular, and I mean, this is no hate to just Bleach, this is like all shonens that have done this before, is that there seems to be this cliche that if the first arc was amazing and critically acclaimed, let's just do the same exact thing but change up a few things. It's like,
Yeah.
giving your friends your homework and then you tell them to change it up a little bit. That's basically essentially all it is. Now, whether that's a good or a bad thing, that is up to the reader. I don't really necessarily consider it the worst thing in Bleach's case, because there are interesting things in the
Oh, yeah.
Arankar arc.
For sure, yeah.
I think that one of the key things, of course, is the battles, like with any shonen. There are some key fights here that I find to be very interesting. I think we get a lot of good intros to a lot of the Soul Reapers that we got to see in the first arc with Soul Society.
A lot of development as well.
What is his name?
What's he look like?
God, blanking out on his name. He wears the cherry blossom robe and he has the Casa hat.
Shunsui, whatever.
Shunsui, yes.
Shunsui, yeah. He's cool. I like him, yeah.
I like him a lot. I consider him to be really cool. His battle with Stark was really awesome. I consider him to be... I think one of the things, too, is that the Espadas had really kind of dark developments. I mean, it was always like this weird like backstory of how like it's survival of the fittest. And then when Aizen came into the picture, it's like, hey, like if you like keep killing Hollows, you'll end up becoming an Espada and being like this half human, half demon thing. And it's pretty cool. I think the lore with a lot of the Hollows are really cool. That's really interesting. And like I said before, to reiterate what I already said, is the fights are really cool in this arc. But there is a mess of just stupid
Can we talk about the best
storytelling.
character? Can we talk about the best character, Child Nell?
Yes.
Oh God, Nell. I think Nell was just the definition of just child fan service. Pedophiles everywhere, including Rurouni Kenshin's author and
she's like the best
Hariko's
of both
author
worlds.
was like looking at Nell, and then all of a sudden she turns into this like 30-year-old MILF, and then they're like, no, I don't want that.
So then she comes back as a child in the Blood War.
Yup.
And they're like, ooh, who is this beauty?
Oh, yikes.
God almighty.
Yeah. I think, like, one of my big problems with Bleach sort of comes up in the Arrancar arc, where I just think there's too many villains to the point where,
Yeah.
like, where a lot of the fights are really cool. A lot of them I'm like, what the fuck, just hurry up. Like,
Oh yeah.
like, there's so many, like, Espadas, and, like, I just didn't care about, and they have these huge, big fights. I'm like, whatever, just get to Aizen, and...
Well, it's like, it's so funny, the pacing, too, because it's like the Grimmjow fight happens, they have kind of this emotional moment where Grimmjow and Ichigo are like, oh, that was great, and then all of a sudden a fucking Espada out of nowhere, like, one-shots Grimmjow, cuts his fucking head off, basically, and it's like, alright, I'm fighting you now, and then Ichigo's like, no, I'm weak, I can't help you, and then all of a sudden, all the Soul Reapers from Soul Society come to the aid of Ichigo. It's like, the pacing just comes out of nowhere. It's like, okay, great. Like, can we not, like that, in my opinion, the Grimmjow fight, impactful. Best fight, one of the best fights in the Arrancar arc.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, it just gets overshadowed by this fucking piece of shit Espada that no one gives a shit about. And then he ends up getting killed by Kenpachi, no problem. And
With Kenpachi goes from one hand to two hands, and that suddenly makes a difference.
And probably my main problem with the Arrancar arc is, of course, the constant change in the story. Like, all of a sudden we'll be with Ichigo, and then all of a sudden we'll be like 20, 30 chapters with just the Soul Reapers trying to defend the Karakuru town or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know the name. Anyways,
Whatever.
and then it's them fighting, and then 30 chapters later, Ichigo's like, okay, let's go back and save them. And then they go back, and then, okay, well, now we need to get an ability so we can kill Aizen because he's practically God now, and he absorbed the Hogyoku. You know what we didn't talk about? We did not talk about the greatest troll and the real villain of Bleach, Kisuke. Kisuke is the real villain of Bleach. He is the reason
How is he the real
everything
villain
got
of Bleach?
fucked up.
I guess that's true.
That whole plot with Rukia absorbing the Hogyoku, basically absorbing it so that Aizen could absorb the Hogyoku and practically become God. Okay? I mean, all of this was under Kisuke's manipulation. He's the true villain of Bleach. Fuck that
So
guy.
are we basically saying that Kisuke is actually the villain?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
He was the
No,
real,
we forgot.
he was the
We
real
forgot to
villain all
mention
along.
that like really awful scene where like Orihime is getting kidnapped and she like gets to say goodbye to Ichigo and she like goes into his room when he's asleep.
I don't feel so good.
And she like almost kisses him and she's like, oh.
Oh god, one of the worst relationships in any shonen. If you
yeah.
thought Naruto, if you thought Sakura and Sasuke's relationship was bad, Ichigo and Orihime is the perfect
Oh my
example of
God.
one of the worst romances in any shonen. And Taita Kubo has gone down in interviews to say that he was not intending his series to end with the relationships that everyone wanted them to be. I always find it so funny that people are like, Ichigo x Rukia, like, yeah, like, let's have sex with this dead girl. Yeah,
This like 200-year-old dead girl.
yeah, exactly. You know?
Yeah.
I mean, Watsky's probably all about it. I don't know.
In fact, on that note, there's always been things that confuse me about the Bleach lore, because it's like, when these people are dead and go to Soul Society, like, do they age normally? Like, well, like obviously they must age.
So
but then,
so like they actually talk about that. Remember, because
Do they?
when Toshiro was being introduced, he was actually born in
right, yeah, but
Soul
like,
Society.
how does that work? Like, then there's people.
Well,
Died in
same
the-
way
probably
that-
died in the
Dead.
womb or something. I don't know.
Yeah, that's a good point. I don't know.
And I've always wondered things like, well, I guess we got our answer to this
mean-
in Burn the Witch, but like, what happens in other places of the world when people die? But I guess.
And also,
Yeah.
not only that, but like, what happens to Ichigo if he's considered a Soul Reaper in the real
Yeah.
world and he's a human and he dies as a human? Does he end up going to Soul Society or does he just die? Like,
Yeah,
that's
because
it.
like if he just goes to the Soul Society, he's like, okay,
Well-
we're good. I'm still the Soul Reaper.
Yeah, exactly.
Because he-
then the series could
No,
continue
he would-
forever, and Taita Kubo would have no issue.
yeah.
When he dies, he would go to the Soul Society because he is still considered a human because his like body hasn't died.
I
don't
guess,
know.
but to be honest, it's
I don't
kind of a
know,
mess in lore. In
Yeah,
my opinion.
the
I
lore
feel
gets
a
there's
bit-
too many
I think-
intricacies into the whole.
Yeah, I think the more you think about it, the worse it gets. So just like,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Just
I do want
accept
to talk
it.
about one more thing though, because this actually kind of pissed me off. We never really understood how Hollows got to Los Muertos. Like, we all know that when people die and their souls don't get sent to Soul Society, they turn into Hollows. But how did they rip open a fucking space-time continuum and then go to Los Muertos? I don't know.
magic.
I got the magic in me. That's gonna be the theme song.
Don't ever
So yeah,
sing
big
that
fight
again.
with Aizen.
Okay, so now we get to the pinnacle of the Arankar arc, and this is probably where the ball teasers kind of get thrown in. Okay, so Aizen ends up absorbing the Hogyoku completely, which is like this all-powerful like object. Essentially what it does is it creates things. So by absorbing it, you're basically God at that point.
Pretty much.
Ichimaru tries to betray him, and that works.
Yeah. Ugh.
Kind of.
So-
kind of
I-
works.
I really don't like how he went out, because like he was such an like evil
Yeah.
villain.
I
and
mean,
then-
there's no winning. I mean, he becomes God. Like, you can't kill a god, and that's what they reiterate constantly. So, Ichigo ends up learning about a technique from his Zanpakuto that you can absorb your Zanpakuto and literally become that thing, and you'll essentially be the most powerful person in the universe. But the payoff is that, or the trade-off is that you'll lose your Soul Reaper powers. So Ichigo does this. He absorbs his Zanpakuto, becomes cool for like 2 seconds, and he beats Aizen, but doesn't kill him because he can't. Kisuke comes to the rescue and is like, oh, I know this Hado that we haven't talked about in like 100 chapters, and it like traps people. Okay. So they trap Aizen, and he's kind of defeated. He's incapacitated and just
Ichigo
can't do
loses his
anything.
powers.
Ichigo loses
The
his
ultimate
powers.
sacrifice.
You would think this would be a perfect opportunity to just end Bleach because it wraps everything up pretty nicely.
Yeah.
I mean, not
And honestly,
nicely,
this-
but for the most
Yeah,
part,
but-
it wraps things up. Okay.
And this is kind of why I was okay with just stopping here for like several years, because like at this point it's like basically the
Yeah.
end.
I
Like,
Yeah,
mean,
and for me, whenever the end of the 48th volume happens, you see everybody disappear, and you see Rukia disappear last. And for me, that was the ending of Bleach.
yeah.
Because, like, for all of its problems, I mean, like, the Aranka arc isn't terrible. It has some good moments, and I do think it has a pretty decent ending. But, like, yeah.
It's a mess. And I think for me, it's also a little too long. It takes so long for the final up to the final battle with Aizen.
So
it's
long.
just like
It's like
there are
like, I
some
like to
parts
say,
of the
like,
story that you're like, okay, hurry up, I don't care, move on. You know, it's like,
yeah. I can't imagine
Yeah.
reading this weekly like back in the day.
oh god, it'd be like a different fight every week, and then it would take a month at least for one fight to finish.
Yeah.
Longer, if not. But yeah, I
Anyway.
mean, all right. So I guess that's pretty much all I have to say about it. I'm gonna give it a final score. I do enjoy Arrancar arc. I do agree with Gear that my time for when I was reading Bleach younger, and I was like, okay, yeah, this is still pretty good. I would give it like still an 8.5 or a 9. I think I'm comfortable saying it's a 7.5. It's not as good as Soul Society, but it's not in anywhere really bad manga storytelling. I feel like the artwork is still there. Like Kubo kind of improved his style a little bit. The introduction.
Well, that's one thing we haven't talked about. Like the artwork in Bleach, like in this part
Skyrockets
of the story
in-
is so
Oh
good.
yeah, it's very stylistic. Like I don't know
Yeah.
anyone who could do Shades of Black very well in like manga format, but Kubo knows how to use his dark colors. Like he knows how to how to
yeah.
make it a style, and that's what he does here with the Arrancar arc. So that for
pretty
sure I give
sexy.
points for. So 7.5 for
Well-
me. I still enjoyed it, but not better than Soul Society.
If I had to rate, if we're talking about when I was still younger and Arrancar was going on, and I still remember when I read that last chapter of the Arrancar arc. I was in my living room. We lived in a different house at the time, and I think I was like, I don't know, when did it end? Like 2009. I think I was like 12, 13 or something like that. And like I actually cried because I thought legit, I thought that was the ending. Back then, I probably would have gave Bleach as a total for the Arrancar arc probably a 9, but now maybe a 7. I'd probably give it a solid 7.
I'd probably give it a 7 too. Like it definitely has its big problems, but I think overall, actually maybe a 6. I don't know.
Oh God.
but like even I still like when I talk about Bleach, I still recommend people read it. I'm like, if you're gonna get into Bleach, I recommend Soul Society and Arrancar, because like even though it's significantly not as good, you know, there's still enjoyment to be had. The art is really good, and I do think it's worth reading. And yeah, anyway, when I finished the Arrancar arc on my reread, I knew what I was about to get into afterwards, and the entire next arc I read it in a single sitting, and oh man, I was
so
quite baffled.
this for me was the downfall of Bleach, because at this point I was buying the series and I was owning each volume to volume. So like volume 48 and 49 is kind of like the shift in the story. Like it's now like Bleach Part 2. Like Ichigo's now
It's
older.
so
like he's a senior
it's,
in
like,
high
so
school.
instant.
You know, he's like, oh okay, all right, this is.
The shift is so like jarring.
Oh, it's
like,
not-
It feels like you're not even reading.
It's
the
not
same
subtle at
series.
all. It's fucking terrible. So Taita Kubo, I don't know what he was really trying to do with Fullbring. I could understand like the editors were like, okay, like where do we go from here? Like Ichigo is basically worthless now. He can't see ghosts. He doesn't have any of his powers. So what happens? Is it just
Oh,
the
shit, we
marvelous
probably should have ended
misadventures
this.
of Ichigo Kurosaki in Karakuro Town, where he just goes around and fucking drinks juice boxes and goes to the arcade? Like, yeah, I don't think he really knew what to do, because he had to do an arc to where he would be able to give Ichigo some power or ability, okay? And so this is where more bullshit storytelling and ass pulling comes out. So
Yeah,
in the
Chad is
Arrancar
like,
arc,
hey man, we got some Fullbrings here. They got their powers. We got a guy who plays as PSP.
oh fuck
and
that kid,
you-
fuck that kid.
You
Not-
can make a swastika out of
Yeah.
nothing or something.
Not gonna lie, like this arc in general was almost Mashima level bullshit.
Oh, I think
I think it's
on
worse
par.
or on par. Exactly.
Well, yeah,
I mean, this in my opinion is the biggest shit stain on the Bleach name, in my opinion.
I think Ichigo getting his powers back is probably the worst moment in the series.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, so first
Actually, no,
off, let's
no.
talk about the hype with the full bring, because that, in my opinion, is the worst thing about this arc. So we get an introduction to an ability that was already foreshadowed a little bit in Soul Society. If you remember Chad, he had this weird arm death thing that he could turn his right arm into, and it was basically like this armored weapon that could fire different types of things and projectiles at people. It was like a cross between a Quincy and a Soul Reaper. It was weird. Anyways, we get an explanation for this, sort of. He is what is known as a Fullbring, and they are technically live humans that have different abilities that they can use to fight off hollows. So they're living people. They're not dead. So, being that Ichigo is human, and he has some connection to his Soul Reaper powers,
Or something.
yeah, he can use that to become a Fullbring. So he does. He becomes a Fullbring for a span of like maybe 5-6 chapters. He uses his ability to spin things, and he maybe fights a
off
dude,
Snowball
and
Run.
he loses really badly to this dude. And then now at the end of the story, we find out about like the substitute Soul Reaper badge, which is so stupid. I mean, I don't know
I was
why
the
Taita
original
Kubo was trying to
substitute
hype
Soul
the,
Reaper.
the fucking substitute Soul Reaper badge, but in Soul Society, it was the white-haired guy. He was like the 13th captain. Fuck, I forget his name.
What
The
was
long-haired
this
white
villain's
guy?
name?
Was
like
it
Ginkgo
Ukitake or something like that?
Yeah. If you're talking about the guy with the long hair, it's
Yeah,
Ukitake.
so
If
him,
you're talking about the short hair
he's like,
guy,
oh,
it's
here's a
Ging.
substitute Soul Reaper badge. We only give it to the privileged. There's only one other one who has this badge. And Ichigo's like, all right, fuck it, sure. And Ichigo shows him this badge, and the guy's like, oh, you were a substitute Soul Reaper? So was I, and I was the first substitute Soul Reaper. And then Jaws hit
guy
the floor.
legit fucking.
And this guy's like,
Yeah.
oh, I want to take down Soul Society for basically manipulating me my whole entire time. So essentially what the badge was is it kept tabs on Ichigo. But that ends up becoming super irrelevant in Blood War because that ends up being thrown out the window too. But for Fullbring, they're like, yeah, so this basically limited your Ryatsu or Rietsu, which is like the Soul Reaper shit that
Rietsu.
is like power levels in this universe. And it basically limits your abilities. It keeps tabs on you. It monitors you, that sort of bullshit. And Ichigo's like, what? They would never do that. And so they fight. Ichigo loses. And then all of a sudden, reinforcements again. All of Soul Society is back, and they're like, okay, Ichigo, we put all of our abilities and power into this sword, and if we stab you, you'll become a Soul Reaper again. And they do that. Ichigo then becomes a Soul Reaper. He ends up killing the substitute Soul Reaper, and then they go on their merry way again. So now Ichigo is once again a Soul Reaper, and he has his powers back, and now Taita Kubo can go into his next arc.
Oh my god.
Which
just
he
that
shouldn't
whole
have.
arc was,
So this arc was
Like,
its
So, like-
service as nothing more than just a way for Ichigo to get his powers back, and it was done in one of the worst ways possible because what could have been done could have happened in a volume or two.
and this was kind of when the downfall of Bleach's popularity started because not only was it doing really bad
Oh yeah,
in the rankings,
and this was the
now,
last
but-
anime arc.
But
This is
yeah,
the
the
fucking
anime
shit
ended, too.
stain that was left with the anime viewers. This was the last hurrah for the anime fans. Was this shit stain
Well, hold
garbage
on.
of an arc?
Hold on, James Hansen himself posted a video yesterday talking about the fact that we might be getting a new anime. You don't know. Maybe.
Great, can't wait.
Oh,
But
yeah,
no,
that'll happen.
so like Fullbring. Oh, yeah, it's fucking. So like whenever he gets stabbed with this sword, like he's already on his knees, he's fucking defeated, he's about to die. How did Genjo? How did none of them see, because like they tapped into their quote unquote innate powers. How did none of them see the Soul Reapers? Because it's not like Ichigo didn't have powers anymore.
They
He
just
did.
They showed up, stabbed him with the sword. Oh, hi Ichigo. Hi, oh, hi Mark. Like, what the fuck? Like,
Oh, I can't remember when this happens, but there's a part where Rukia gets turned into a stuffed animal, and she like gives a speech about friendship.
oh God, fairy tale. I don't remember this.
No,
I feel
just,
like
yeah,
that
don't-
was filler.
I remember it's from the Fullbring arc. I just have this screenshot in my folder where it says where Rukia is a stuffed animal, and she says, "That's the reason why you should never abandon your friends."
God,
I feel like that's
I can't remember the context at all, but apparently that happens
that's
too.
disgusting. Anyways, that's all I have to say about Fullbring. If any of you guys have any more to add, I'm willing to just move on and just talk about.
2 out of 10. Maybe
Yeah,
1,
I mean,
don't know.
this is garbage. I mean, this is like Black Clover, Demon Slayer levels of shonen, just like
Ooh, that's a controversial
1 or
take.
2 out of 10 here. This was garbage.
if I'm grading the art, like a 6 out of 10. Maybe
Oh, the
a
art's
7 out of 10.
fine, but like the fucking story
Yeah.
is like, ugh.
But this one's rough. Can I possibly give it a 0?
Trust me, I will accept that. Anyways, moving on.
Sure.
Okay, so all that
So-
hype, all that build up for Ichigo to get his ability back, only for the next arc to say, yeah, Ichigo,
Yeah.
I wasn't really your
Oof.
true Zanbakuto, bye, and then that's pretty much what happened. So now Ichigo is left.
Also, your mom was a Quincy.
Yep. So now
Yeah,
on the
yeah.
everything is so
Flashback
now on the
Dojutsu.
everybody loves Ichigo list. Ichigo's a human. He's a Quincy. He's a Fullbring. He's a Hollow. He's a Soul Reaper. He's everything. He's fucking God. And I think that's what Taita Kubo was trying to hype up too. Was that he was going to become the next Soul Reaper God at the end of this arc. He was going to end up becoming one of the gods.
Yeah. So now we have the Quincy's are back, and they're here for a blood war. They go to the old dude and cut him in half.
Yep. So the hype around this arc is that Kubo wanted to do another surprise twist. We end up finding out that all along a remnant of his Quincy blood that was inside of Ichigo was turned into his Zanpakuto. And we find out that it is a man known as Yowatch, who is the Quincy leader, I guess. And he
like that.
Who
now
has
seeks
somehow
to
become dormant this entire
destroy the Soul Society god, so that way he could become a god
Oh right, yeah.
and
Which,
take over the Soul Reapers.
For being the quote-unquote Soul Reaper god, anybody was confused at the fact that he didn't move, he was just there.
Oh yeah, he's like an inanimate
Like-
object who can be stabbed. And there's a fucking plot later where Ichigo actually ends up killing the Soul Reaper god, and then Yowatch ends up getting his way.
Oh my
It's so stupid.
Also, this is when Uryu has his big Sasuke
Oh yes,
moment
so
and
we forgot to
joins
mention
the-
Oh,
that.
yeah.
So Uryu
God.
basically is like, I don't like you anymore, Ichigo, and then leaves. And then it
Yeah,
it literally
and
becomes
disappears for
Naruto Part
forever.
1 at the end, where it's just Naruto,
Pretty much.
Sasuke.
And honestly, it kind of becomes a retrieval arc, too.
Again, yes,
Kind
exactly.
of.
They're trying to get Uyu back. So now, yes, so they end up getting the same Soul Society crew together, with the exception of Uyu. They get the fucking firework dude. They get Orihime, Chad, the one girl with the missing arm, Yoroichi, and Kisuke.
What was her
And
name?
they all go
Kohaku?
up back to Soul Society in the same similar fashion. And they're basically like, you are my friend. And Uyu's like, no, sir.
Meanwhile, there's
Oh.
25 new.
Oh,
villains
yes.
right
By the
now.
way,
It's like-
so now the Quincy's are modeled after the fucking letters of the alphabet. So there's like. They all have this unique ability
Which-
that coordinates
Jesus
with their
Christ.
particular letter. A is for Almighty, which is Yhwach. And then we also get an introduction to what I consider to be one of the only few redeeming things in Blood War, because it was always an interesting point of topic that we never learned about. And it was Division Zero, but then they ended up being pieces of shit.
Yeah.
But in the beginning, they weren't like that. In the beginning of the arc, I was all on board. Then they ended up getting one-shotted by fucking Yhwach. And not only that, but his elite division that he quote-unquote says is their elite division, they end up beating the elite division, but then they end up having this power and ability that lets them be resurrected by using the dead Quincy's or the live Quincy's, and then so that they can get resurrected, come back to life stronger, and then also end up not being defeated, but then they end up being defeated anyway. So, this arc is a mess. It is a total mess. There are very few good bits, and then they're handled so fucking poorly by just bad writing.
I remember, like, when I first started it, like, it was already better than Fullbring, and for a while, like maybe 10 or 20 chapters, I was kind of like, alright, I'm actually digging this. This could be cool. And then it's like, no. Oh my god, the fight with Kenpachi when he fights that dude who has the imagination powers.
Oh yeah, that was a joke. Like, I don't know how he could win that. Like, that fight would have just ended. Like, just imagine you winning the fight. That's it. Game over.
It's literally, because that blows my mind, because it's literally like the same thing that happens in Fairy Tail, where they conjure up a meteorite to come down into the earth, and then they cut it in half.
All these people have
like,
godlike abilities.
That's wild.
And they just lose in the dumbest fashion or form. It's so stupid. And then eventually, about halfway through the arc, they're like, okay, we can't beat Yhwach. We need to, like, get Aizen to help us. And so, Inner Chair Sama, like, literally, he's in a fucking wheelchair for the entirety of this arc. And you know what? I'll go on a limb. I think Aizen is the best character in fucking Blood War. He says nothing, but when he does, half the time it's actually good shit. So
well, to be fair, he couldn't say anything because he was fucking gagged for half of the show.
They let him. So they had. I guess he had like a straitjacket with like 100 keyholes. So they let him. So they were able to use 4. So 1 for his mouth, 1 for his finger, 1 I think for his eye, and then 1 for something else. He had basically become so powerful that if they were to unleash him, he could kill Yhwach, but he'll just end up killing everybody else at the end of the day. So Aizen ends up helping everybody in this arc in particular. And by the way, one of the funniest fucking things that happens at the end of the Arrancar arc is that Aizen is sentenced to, I think, what is it, like 2 million years or something like that? It's some ridiculous number because he can't die. He's essentially like, he could live forever. So by helping, he gets his sentence knocked down, I think, like 50,000 years or something like that, and then he gets like immunity. I don't know. It's a fucking mess.
Oh my god. Near the end, I can't remember exactly, but I think this is like right when Ichigo is about to go in for the final fight. Then like the Fullbring guys show up. I'm like, no.
Oh god. Okay, so the Hollows show up. What did they call them? What did they call the Hollows in the? What were they? The
Arrancars?
They had a name. Like they were the Hollow Soul Reapers.
Oh no.
Oh god. Like they show up in this arc. Okay, towards the end, they're like, "Okay, we're gonna help you."
Right.
Again. This arc is a mess. I mean, I feel that there were so many there was so much potential. There were all these questions that were asked in the beginning of Soul Society. In the first 21 volumes, like, who's Division Zero? Who's the Soul King? We don't know. That'd be cool to know. Okay? Like, okay,
there was
last Quincy, that's cool, knowing that Uyu is not the last Quincy, and that there's now all of a sudden this twist where Yhwach was part of Ichigo. Okay, cool. We end up learning one of the cool fights is Kenpachi versus the Division 3 captain. Forget her name.
Right.
We end up figuring out that she was the former Kenpachi, and she just traded her position over because she wanted to change or whatever. but for whatever reason, at this pinnacle point, like, in order to get Kenpachi stronger, she's like, oh, you never really killed the original captain of Division 10. I was Kenpachi all along. And then he goes, what the fuck? And so now they have this big battle where it's Soul Reaper on Soul Reaper, and then Kenpachi ends up killing her, which is great. Like Gear said, what... I keep forgetting names, and I love Bleach, and I should know, because I did know all these names. The Old Man, Division 1, Yamamoto gets sliced in half. I mean, he gets one-shotted. Granted, I mean, he was down an arm, but he basically gets, like, the power creeping in this arc is ridiculous. Like, Yawatch was, like, hyped up to be this strong Soul Reaper, and then he just gets one-shotted, no problem. Never comes back.
Yeah, so on that note, how about that ending?
The ending, yeah. So, the ending is just about as equal.
I remember when this first happened, they announced, like, out of nowhere that Bleach had 5 chapters left. And I remember everyone, like, how?
So the way that the fight was wrapped up is it was summed up with 3 chapters of text, 1 chapter of saying that you can't beat me, and then 1 chapter of him being sliced in half.
I think how it works, like, Uryu shows up, and he, like, does this thing that allows Yawatch to be vulnerable for, like, a split second.
Here's the thing. Uryu is the savior of the day because Ichigo can't beat Yawatch, and then Uyu's like, hey, I have this arrow that if you shoot it, it will kill this person in 1 hit. And so Uyu shoots it, and it kills Yawatch. That's it. No, literally, that's it. That's what happens. So Yawatch gets one-shotted.
Over how awful
Fans are fucking pissed off. With the exception of James Hansen, who still thinks that the ending was great.
Still talks about fucking Bleach.
So nicely. I don't know how anyone could think that, but, you know, your opinion, man. I mean, we could probably spend an hour talking about Blood War in depth on how bad it really is. I think the problems with the previous arcs, like the Rancor arc, had so many espadas. This one doubles the villain count, so it doubles. It really triples the amount of different characters because on top of the 25 Quincy's that you meet, I believe this. Well, are they separated? They might be. I don't know. So like the elite division of Quincy's that they get sent up to Division 0, that's a whole nother category of people as well. I'm just gonna straight say it. Like this particular arc is a 4 or a 5 out of 10. I mean, there are some moments, the artwork's really good, but, like, everything else is a mess. It suffers from too many things.
And of course, the final epilogue where it's just, like, shoehorned in all the romances. He has kids or something.
The more bullshit introduced is Renji x Rukia and Orihime x Ichigo.
Ichigo x Orihime.
And
which I'm still convinced she raped him.
100%. Hey, we can't talk about that. This is the Vic Mignonga sponsored podcast.
Oh yeah.
We gotta censor this bit. Anyways, fuck it. Anyways, so they also another plot hole. How do fucking Soul Reapers have children? How does that work? Like, do they just, like, gather up the Ryetsu and, like, hey, let's make a baby, and then that forms a child, I guess.
Like some Steven
Or do they, like,
shit.
kill some living child in the real world, and then when that child goes to Soul Society, they're like, okay, you're my child now.
But it doesn't really make sense, because Toshiro did age, and he was born.
I think there is an
in the Soul
explanation for that.
Society.
I think they say
I don't
every
know.
100 years is considered, like, 1 year of your life. Maybe that's that, but...
So, yeah.
That wouldn't make any sense because Yamamoto was 1,000-something years old. Or more, like 4,000 or 5,000.
So, yeah. But yeah, so Blood War, I'd probably give it a 4. It's not the worst thing I've ever read, but it's pretty bad, especially the ending.
Oh, the ending makes it a little more worse. But I think that more or less was a Shonen Jump issue, not a Kubo issue, but... I don't think that's saying much because it
the
probably
fans,
still
all
would
the
have sucked, but it wouldn't have been that bad.
Yeah.
You know.
So Apollo, how would you rate it?
Well, y'all left out one major thing that kind of made the entire thing for me, and that was when Tito Kubo introduced a FMA character, Pride, into the series.
What
Oh
was this?
You don't remember that?
no.
Whenever you watch, got the cloak of like a billion eyes, fucking Pride.
Are you talking about one of the? So it was one of the Quincy's. It had like the dude had like a cloak on, and he just had like two glowing eyes or whatever.
No, it was when you watch became like the all-seeing
when he,
dude.
so when he
and
became
could-
God,
yeah.
yeah, okay. So a lot of people become God in,
Yeah,
in
yeah.
Bleach, just letting you know that right now. The whole scenario plays out like over and over again. Like just characters end up killing other people, absorbing their powers, getting better and stronger, and then they end up getting one-shotted or KO'd in some dumb, ridiculous way.
Yeah. So yeah, Apollo, what's your rating?
I'd rate it about
Yeah,
a 3.
That's fine. That's appropriate.
All right.
Bleach as a whole, I mean,
So all right.
Now,
I gave it a
7.
4 when I reviewed it, and I think it's just because like the ending hurts it so much that like as a whole, it's really hard for me to be like, yeah, what a great series. But like I still have a soft spot for like the early parts and would still recommend those to anyone. But
yeah.
I just
Yeah.
tell people to stop when.
I think for me, like, if I were to add up all the numbers as a whole, for me, Fullbring makes up for everything. Like, that is the worst fucking arc I've ever seen in Shonen. And that, in my opinion, would have been the worst way to end Bleach, is on the Fullbring arc. Because I think they were also trying to set that up as, like, hey, like, Ichigo is always going to be a Soul Reaper, and he's always going to protect everybody, because now he's a Soul Reaper again. And then Blood War just too long, and fucking just terrible with pacing and its
And now
storytelling.
the $1 million question: when will we see it animated?
2020.
Yeah, so there are rumored talks that
I mean,
Bleach
there's
is coming
always
back,
rumored talks about
and
that, and like.
I don't see any money
yeah,
made
like,
in
people
it.
forget,
like I don't.
Bleach fell off so bad in the sales. Like, not only
Let's-
was it like dead last in the rankings for its last few years, but like you compare the volume sales to what they used to be, it's like wow.
Let's
Like,
also
it used
not
to be
forget.
like-
And I mean, with all
It
these
used to
other
be like
shonen
top 5
series,
best-selling series of the year, then it dropped to like top 20 or something. Like,
Let's also
and,
not
Yep.
forget the fact that
Oh yeah, it
Yeah.
stayed at top 20. It was be like ranked 17 or ranked 18th, and it used
yeah.
to be like
which I
top
mean is
5,
still
like you
big,
said.
but
So
like it's just not. And like, of course, the anime got canceled. I
Well,
just don't really see them.
yeah,
Like thinking it's a good decision to animate the Blood War because it's really long. It would need to be like
Yeah.
50 episodes
And then
minimum.
the other
Probably
problem, of course,
like
would be
100.
who would animate it, and if it's a
Yeah.
shitty.
Because like you look at Periot
Yeah.
is busy with like
And
Black
if they give it
Clover
to this
and
shitty
Boruto.
company, like the people who did the Berserk anime, with like, imagine if Bleach was in 3D. Oh my god! Just imagine Ichigo walking animation.
that would be.
Oh god!
And I just feel like because there's so many people who have been like waiting for this anime and don't actually know about the like what's the Blood War's like. I feel like it would just cause more
Oh,
people
yeah.
to hate the series. I see people go on like, "Yo, if Bleach were back, it would be fire. It would be the best show ongoing." I'm like, "What?
No one knows what a Bleach is.
What are you talking about?" Yeah. And now we have this podcast should go up before we hear the announcement, but Kubo is making a new announcement in Jump this week. Most likely going to be a new series from him. So
Woo.
I hope it's just
Burn the
another
Witch,
novel.
which
And
takes place in the same universe.
Ooh.
that was the thing too. I do have to say I didn't like Burn the Witch, but I kind of see it as like this big fuck you to Shonen Jump by just like secretly bringing Bleach back.
Yep.
Because
Imagine him bringing Ichigo back into the series through Burn the
oh
Witch.
my god.
That would
Ichigo's
be
the
the biggest
father.
fuck you.
If
But it
there's
would
one
have to
thing I
get.
want, if he's gonna do anything, I really hope he just starts with a blank
Oh, yeah,
slate
because
and tries out a new series.
Kubo's got a
and
great
maybe
style. I
they'll
feel
end up-
Yeah.
like if he was paired with a
Yeah.
writer, man, he could work some magic.
Yeah, and like we're in an era now where Shonen Jump series don't last very long. The editors just let people end it on their own terms. So I feel like if we could get something like as good as Soul Society
Yeah,
and it just
perfect.
end like
There you go.
15,
Yeah.
20 volumes, that could be amazing, right? Like,
Yeah, because
so
like
that's really what I hope for.
It's
I will
gonna be
probably
like a
be
Bleach
disappointed,
all-in-one
but,
edition
we'll
or
see.
some fucking shit, or like a full color edition,
Oh my God.
or some crap. I don't know.
whew, I hope not.
Or like Bleach Kai, like a
Or how about an
anime.
HD remaster of the anime? Just like every episode is now in 4K. All right.
Or maybe they're putting more Bleach characters in Jump Force.
Ooh, or we're getting
Bleach
Br-
Brave
Bleach
Souls
Brave Souls
2.0.
too.
Ugh.
Oh my god! Which by the way, before we go, like that game, I see people like Bleach fans talk about that game all the
Oh
time.
yeah, because there's
and the other
there's
day,
fan art in it.
Yeah.
Like there is a level beyond Ukiura's second form in Bleach. Like there's like his third final form or whatever.
yeah, I looked up Bleach Brave Souls because I was curious. I'm like, okay, all the Bleach fans love this. Obviously, there's something here, and it's just a shitty mobile game.
Yep.
I'm like,
It's a shitty
what?
It's a shitty
But I guess-
Dynasty
I
Warriors
feel kinda-
game. That's basically all it is.
I feel kind of bad because I guess this is like the only thing Bleach related that still gets supported.
Yep.
Right? Like there's nothing else. Really, Bleach has been dead for a while
Well,
now.
final volume came out like, jeez, quite a bit ago, you know. So
Yeah, and like again, I just can't see them bringing the anime back because who would animate it? And I just don't think it would be
no,
worth it. in the
because
long
people
run.
are too on board with My Hero, Black Clover, Boruto,
Yeah,
Dragon
like,
Ball
people have
Super,
moved on
all
from
this
Bleach.
shit that's
Like,
coming back.
Of course, we have like the yo hype guys on Twitter who never stop posting about Bleach, but like I'm pretty sure they're in the minority,
Yep.
right? It's just like this really vocal like niche group.
Which
Alright.
I'm still
That's what
wondering
Midnight
how
After
they're still
Cast.
garnering views.
well, but that's the
but-
thing. It's not that many. Like I mean, his videos get like 10,000 views maybe, but like in the grand scheme of things, 10,000 people isn't enough to.
Oh, trust me.
No,
He's
it's-
got plenty of things to rant and have theories about. Is Ichigo really?
by
is
the way-
Ichigo the true god of all Soul Society?
Which, by the way, have you guys seen his hour-long video on Ichigo's character development?
don't want to.
Yes. No. I haven't watched
I've never
it all.
seen. Some people
Jesus.
keep commenting on my Bleach review. It's like, man, you gotta watch James Hansen's video. Ichigo's character is actually really deep when you think about it. I'm like, nope, no.
Nope.
Jesus.
Uh,
All right.
So
So
yeah,
after cast time, let's talk about what we've been doing recently here in the community. Like I said, Apollo uploaded
okay.
a shitty podcast that you shouldn't support.
You haven't even watched it. Fuck off.
I'll watch it soon. Then we can talk about it next Manga Alert.
Sounds good. We'll do that.
Okay, so we got some breaking news. This news just broke while we were recording. Mario and Sonic at the Tokyo 2020 Olympic Games has been announced.
Oh shit.
Oh my god.
They skipped the last Olympics, but they
Is
are
it gonna
back.
be on Wii U?
No, just
If
Switch.
it was, it would be great.
You know what I really like is
So-
that how like the London one was like yellow, I think, or the Wii U one was yellow. Which one was it? I'm trying to remember. Anyway,
something
it was
that.
like the
Rio.
worst looking cover because like it was the only standout game that had like this weird yellow clamshell design and it just stood out like a sore thumb, like someone pissed on my games. And here you go.
That's
Yeah.
the one that you know you should avoid.
Mm-hmm. Oh man.
I mean, I've been
What have you-
kind of chilling. I've been working, taking care of a few things going on in my life. I am working on a few new videos. I got a couple of projects in the back
Oh,
burner.
boy.
Hopefully, I can get to work and finish that and upload it here in maybe
Oh,
next
yeah.
week. So we'll see.
I've been quite busy with school. The semester's wrapping up now. Got a lot of big deadlines.
Oh,
I
same,
probably
yeah.
shouldn't even be recording this right now. but other than that, I've been playing. Like I haven't had much time to sink my teeth into like a bigger game because I just barely have any. But I've been playing a lot of Tetris.
Like Sekiro, Shadows Die Twice.
Like I've played so much Tetris 99 the past few weeks because it's just like you can sit down for 3 minutes and play a game.
Have
It's
you
great.
made
Yeah.
the top 10?
Yeah, I think my highest is like 7 or something.
Very nice, very nice.
Nice.
Yeah, it's a great time. Even though it's literally like there's no content, it's just Tetris, but like whatever, it's great.
But with 90
I have been reading Dr. Stone. I just finished Volume 4 yesterday,
Nice.
so I plan on catching up soon.
Good shit.
And then I am also rereading all of Naruto
Ew.
because I hate myself.
Yeah.
I
Are
actually
you gonna get Boruto this time?
no.
No.
I am reading Boruto. I am
Oh.
going to read Boruto after Naruto because I want to find out why the hell people actually enjoy it.
It
I
gets
don't-
good at
The
episode
same
64.
reason people like Dragon Ball Super. It's just
The
terrible.
same
You
reason
like
people
Dragon
like
Ball
the
Super.
Blood
Don't
War.
like Dragon Ball Super.
You collect Dragon Ball
It
Super.
doesn't mean I like it.
You
Which,
But
by
you
the
pay
way,
your money.
that's coming back this year, July. Yeah,
in June, right?
July.
July.
Anime don't start in June.
Hey, yeah, they do.
Hey,
They
the
start every month.
time I got reincarnated as Yamcha manga was pretty good.
Maybe that'll be part of
that's
Super.
that's pushing it right there. I don't.
Hey, as a one shot, it does its job well.
I would actually love if Dragon Ball Super, like the first 5 episodes of the new season, are just like the Yamcha manga.
That would be awesome.
I would actually love that.
The greatest hero of all, Yamcha. But how can we get Yamcha when we can get Shaggy on board as the true ultimate
I wonder who they're
God
gonna
Lord?
recast when Broly comes into the anime.
Oh yeah. Yeah, so I guess, well, I won't spoil it because this isn't the Super podcast or any Dragon Ball podcast for that matter. But yeah, there's some interesting rewrites.
Oh yeah.
All right, so I think that's okay to end it on that note. I would say that was a pretty good episode, guys. We talked
Yeah.
about all
One of the
Bleach.
longer ones, but you know we got
Definitely,
a good
but
bit
it
of
needed
info
to
in.
be done. We have now finished the big 3. Thank God. We can now just stop.
Well, I mean,
talking
there's
about
always
it
room
until
for
One
another
Piece
One
gets
Piece.
its final 800 volumes, and I guess we can do a part 3 on that. But
Oh God.
People are always asking me, it's like, bring back your One Piece arc reviews. I'm like, I haven't reviewed the One Piece arc in like 4 years. Leave me alone.
I also
Yeah,
just
probably
realized.
because one hasn't been completed in 4 years either.
I also just realized.
Cake
Yeah, they
Island
did.
took like 10 years to finish.
Well, Cake Island just ended, but anyway, I just realized that by the end of it, fucking One Piece is probably gonna have 5 box sets. Probably.
You cut out.
I said by the end of it all, I'm sure One Piece will probably have 5 box sets.
And on
Probably.
that note, thank you all for watching.
And yeah, thanks for watching, and let's pray that Shrugpod is back with us next week.
It's also
Crawling in my skin. All right, take it easy, guys. Peace out.
peace.
Yeah.
Our dicks are stuck inside the game machine. Everybody wishes they could be.